Go get some Keets? You wanna go get the Keets? Let's go. Come on, let's go. Come on. Hi everyone, it's Nicole from heritageacresmarket.com, and if you're joining us from the previous video on how to set up your brooder, then welcome. And otherwise, this video is going to be about how to get your birds set up in the brooder after you've picked them up from the post office so that you have the greatest success and the least amount of losses. When I first started getting birds through the mail, I would lose, unfortunately, about 25% or so. And that's because I was making some mistakes that I hadn't read anywhere online. And over the series of a couple years, I figured out what some of those mistakes were. Some of them were with the brooder setup that you can hear about in the previous video. And some of it was with the actual getting the birds set up in the brooder. You can't just throw them in there and hope for the best. There's a couple things that you have to do. So this video is going to show you what I do, and since I started implementing these couple steps, I have had almost 100% survival rate. Every now and then I'll lose one. I think it's just, you know, when you're getting hundreds of birds, you're going to have one or two that just aren't as strong. But for the most part, I have very high success rate. So in this box is, actually these boxes, because there's two of them, is 150 guinea fowl Keets. So each one of these boxes is split up into 4 quadrants. And because I have 150 in these 2 boxes, each quadrant will have about 25 birds, give or take. Now, these birds came from Pennsylvania. They were born Wednesday morning, and it's now 10 a.m. on Friday. So they're about 48 hours old or so, 2 days old. And I will show you. Here is the little Keets. And unfortunately, we did have a loss in transit. I mean, they send extra, so that's nice. It still sucks. It doesn't make it any easier when you have a loss, but unfortunately, it is kind of part of the deal and to be expected. Still doesn't make it any easier, but let's get these little guys comfortable in the brooder, and let me set up the camera and I'll show you how we do that. Okay, so this is our brooder, and just to recap real quick, in the event that you didn't watch the previous video, this is a commercial brooder, so it's going to look a little bit different than yours, but you can see in the back we have a heat source. It's mounted to the ceiling by the lights there. Our brooder is set to between 90 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a non-slick floor liner. In this case, it's a pool liner from a swimming pool that worked really well for this. And then to start out, I don't offer them any food. The first most important thing is to get them hydrated. So I have this water with the electrolytes and vitamins and electrolytes added to it. And I put the water in the brooder last night so that it had a chance to get warm. You don't want to give them cold water because they need to stay between that 90 to 95 degrees. So giving them cold water is going to really cool them down and shock them. So warm water with the vitamin, 95 degrees, and let me show you what to do next. Okay, so this is the painstaking but very important part of adding the chicks, or in this case, Keets, to the brooder. So I have found that if you just take your birds, put them in the brooder and call it a day, that they're not going to survive because they're not able to find their food or their water. So every single bird, in this case I have 150 Keets, so every single 150 of them, I'm going to do the same exact thing, and I find it to be imperative to their survival. So I take each individual bird out of the brooder, and they're very wiggly little things. And the first thing I do is to check and make sure that they don't have pasty butt. So that's where they have a layer of poop stuck to their little rectum and covering their feathers. So this one's good. There's no pasty butt on this one. And then the next thing, again, very important, and it's kind of awkward, and I promise you I'm not hurting them. They just wiggle a lot. So take each individual bird and gently dip their beak into the water. Don't cover their nostrils, and wait for it to take a sip. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others. Let's try it again. Oh. Like I said, they're very wiggly. So it didn't take a sip, so let's try it again. There we go. It took a sip. So then I'll set it down. Again, to make sure you don't cover its nostrils. It's very important that you don't drown them in this process. But each individual bird, with the Guinea Keets especially, because they're not very smart. And so I'll show you again. So I've got another chick. There's no pasty butt. There's a little poo on there, but it's not pasty butt yet. So we'll keep an eye on them. And then dip its little head in the water, not covering its nostrils. It took a sip, so it's good to go. And so I'll do this with all 150 of them. I'll just note real quick that not all 150 go into this brooder. This brooder is only 36 by 36 roughly. So in this case, I'll put about 50 in each one, which is plenty of room. They're only going to be in here a week before they go to customers, so they're not going to get very big. So after I give each individual one some water, I'll wait about an hour so that they can all drink and get settled, and that's when I'll add the food. And I can show you that. But in the meantime, I only have 148 more Keets to give little sips of water to.